everybody, this is Michael. Welcome back to Let's Make Maps. We're on the 9th episode of this series so far, and so far we've been focusing on making fantasy maps. I thought that it might be good to take a little bit of a break from that, partially because I've been feeling a little inspired on it, and partially because let's cover something different, which would be sci-fi stuff a little bit. So what I'd like to do is this episode and maybe a few more, we will do sci-fi deck plans, and then we'll also look at some like star map type of things. Let's take a look at... Oops, hang on, I'm going to be opening the wrong thing here. Let's take a look at doing some sci-fi deck plans that I've done before, and then we can look at how we might be able to do that ourselves. Okay, I finally managed to do this. Unfortunately, I have JPEG assigned to Photoshop, so it opens in Photoshop instead of this lovely little slideshow thing that I've got here. This is a deck plan that I made based on in the Star Trek universe. This is the Nova class. It's a small ship. It actually appeared in Star Trek Voyager, I think, and I forget what its name was. Yeah, I'm not really sure, but Nova class was like a small planetary explorer. It ended up in the Delta Quadrant, and Voyager encountered it, and they were like burning up some alien life forms for power or something like that. Anyway, probably know the episode I'm talking about if you're a Star Trek fan, and if you're not, it doesn't really matter. But just bear in mind that that this class of ship is a pretty small one, and it's got, I think, 8 decks. And this is deck 1 and 2. What I've done is just sort of put them into a LCARS style, library computer access and retrieval system, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. But the idea was that, we're looking at in a database at the schematics, and we get the details of it, and, even the crew and all that sort of thing. This was for... just a home role-playing game thing that we did once upon a time, and I made these deck plans as a thing to hand out on iPads to people. So here's deck 1 and 2. Okay, well, they're out of order, so 6, 7, and 8. These are the bottom of the ship. These are the originals that I went through. I'll tell you what, let's go back. There we go, deck 3 here. Deck 4, which is probably the biggest one here. We can see like the details inside of the nacelles. We can see that the little ship's gig or whatever the heck it was. I don't ever remember this ship appearing in the show. I don't think they did anything with it. Here we've got another deck, and then we're back to deck 1 and 2. Now the originals that I sort of drew these from were here, and honestly I'm not sure where these originate. I imagine the deck plan itself comes from Star Trek lore somewhere, but this is copyright 2006 by Quantum Reality Inc. So the design itself, I don't know, could be copyrighted, might not be copyrighted. Didn't really matter for what I was doing because, again, this was for personal use, but always check that sort of thing. The good thing about doing sci-fi is that the fandom is so huge that you can generally find, somebody has done a diagram of something. If you're looking to make a copy of it, make something for home use, make something just for fun, you're going to find that somebody has already done it before. Now, another thing that I want to get into later is like maybe doing a star map or something, and I'm going to show you guys an example of one that I've done that I did for this same project. This is just a map of the what is it, the beta quadrant, I guess. I don't know, I get confused. I guess alpha quadrant. We have Deep Space Nine over here, if you're familiar with that TV show. Bajor, Cardassia, all that nonsense that was going on around over there. The idea was that the ship, the Singularity, was going to be like looking for ways, what is it, quantum tunneling phenomenon or something like that, ways for traveling faster than normal warp drive could do. And so this was the area they were going to begin. Here's the Badlands where the Voyager was lost. Again, if you're not a Star Trek fan, none of this may make any sense to you, but there's no reason that these same techniques that we're going to talk about over the next few episodes wouldn't apply to, Firefly or Babylon 5 or anything. The specific Star Trek style here, this LCAR style and the font that I'm using and all that, of course, is very Star Trek specific. But again, and we may try doing something like in the Firefly universe at some point. If you guys are interested in that, do let me know, and we'll take a look at it in the future. Here is actually the map that this came from, that I used as a guide. This is a close-up of it, of just the Cardassian area. Here's the whole map right here, and you can we zoom in on this? Yeah, we can. It's a little fuzzy, but you can kind of see here's Earth, our Sol, and here's Deep Space Nine. So this is the area that's covered by this map, and I just used this as a base for positioning, and then worked from that to go forward. Now this map comes from a source, and I just want to share this with you guys in case you're ever looking. There is a book, it's very hard to get these days. It's by a guy named Jeffrey Mandel. It's called Star Trek Charts, The Complete Atlas of Star Trek. And it was done, I think it was done post-Enterprise. So it has maps for pretty much all eras. Yeah, it does include Enterprise. So it's totally good. Can we flip through any of the pages in here? Not anything worth seeing, really. I know, I guess there's a little bit. Just a really great book. I mean, if you like cartography and you like sci-fi, no reason not to take a look at this book. Now, where do you get it from? Hey, man, I don't know. Amazon, you know, things that are out of print, they go all wacky. 97, 91. I love the book. I'm not paying that for it. My friend has it, and she loaned it to me, and that was the genesis of this. I scanned in that image and used it. Another book for Deckplans, though, and probably any books in these sort of series, these Star Trek technical manual series, you're going to find, like this one here, Star Trek Deep Space Nine technical manual, includes just some amazing deck plan type materials. I don't know if we're going to get to see any in the preview here, but there's just a ton of really great stuff. There's also this star map here, which doesn't really focus on the stars, more on the presentation in the Star Trek style. We could do something like that or something like this at some point. But, you know, Star Trek has that clean graphic style, I guess, is the way to put it. That LCAR's, you know, presentation is just very clean. There's no highlight or shadow. There's no beveling. There's nothing going on there but the color and the layout of the thing. So it's really interesting to, it's an interesting style to try to emulate. But beyond that, we've got other things that we could look at too, like Firefly and stuff in the future. But for now, I think we're going to focus on just on how to approach this deck plan style that we have over here. Going to go back to it real quick. This kind of thing here. So let's do that, and then let's focus on a little bit too how to do this sort of thing. Just so you know, a map is cool, but a map without presentation is just sort of meh. You can see that on my star map is sort of. Do we not have access to the other ones that were here? Maybe because I'm zoomed in. There we go. This here, you know, if I had put a proper, you know, Star Trek frame on it, the presentation would have been a lot nicer, right? So presenting your map is a very important thing. And I know I'm rambling on. We're not going to get as much stuff done as I'd like to here, but I want to kind of talk about some foundational things with this. And actually, I'm going to show you guys on my website. This is my website, and I've got a little gallery of some images here. Here's an example, I think, of presenting a map. This was done for an entry on Cartographer's Guild, and it's a real simple style. It's a Western style map that I made using a lot of the same techniques that we see in the fantasy map tutorial that I've already done, except that it's presented for a Deadlands role-playing game with kind of an intro to the adventure. Here's this town. Here's some places of interest. It's pitched in the form of, you know, coming from like, you know, Union intelligence or something like that, or actually like CSA intelligence. And you know, but the whole thing gives you a feel, right? As opposed to if you just see this map with nothing on it, or even just the name of it, you don't get quite the same feeling that you would if we were looking at. So like this one doesn't have a frame, it doesn't have anything. It has some feeling to it, but it doesn't have the same kind of thing as the full presentation. Let's see, is there another good example in here? I believe there is. If we can get them. Unfortunately, my gallery layout here isn't the best thing in the world. But yeah, this one here is the one I was thinking of. This one here was another entry in on Cartographer's Guild. This is a, you know, kind of an Asian styled fantasy city, and it's here got, you know, like a little story on it. It has, you know, kind of the Asian border, and some nice chops, and a custom made compass rose up here. So the, you know, the feeling that you get from this, it really puts it into context as opposed to just seeing this map here, which isn't going to tell you a whole lot. I mean, you can see a lot of detail and it's cool, but the presentation really adds something to it. So I'm going to drop the discussion there, and let's get into making a map like this. And we're going to do something a bit simpler. I mean, those maps took a ton of work, a ton of time, and a ton of work. We're probably not going to do this deck plan here because that is a really big one. But let's drag over this deck plan for the Intrepid. Now, the Intrepid class is the ship that Star Trek Voyager is part of. And here we've got a map. I think this is from the same source. And we've got the bridge area here. And I'm thinking that we can maybe take this bridge area and just try making a map with just that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it out here, and we're going to make a new image. Now, how big is this image going to be? Well, I don't rightly know, but let's just make it a big square. And you could probably go bigger if you wanted to. And then let's take this and zoom it up a little bit. We'll leave a little bit of room around the edge for our presentation frame. You don't have to do that right now. We could expand the canvas later and do it there. Probably even better to do these in separate frames so you don't have like a million little layers hanging around. But in general, I think we can do this. Now, we've got a reference image here that we're going to use. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it into its own group, and I'm not even going to bother naming that group. I'm just going to throw it in there, maybe, except I don't seem to be able to. I can't move the background because it's locked. Is that the story? Can I not unlock the background? What am I doing wrong here? Well, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm just going to delete that layer and create a new one. You know, the initial background layer in Photoshop is all neat and everything, but it acts funny. I usually just end up deleting it because it gets in my way. So I'm going to lock that group there so we don't edit it accidentally. And then let's start just kind of laying some stuff out on here. I guess I will label that just so that we know what the heck it is when we see it down there. And then this group here, I'm just going to call it Sketch. Now, one thing that might make you guys happy is I'm not going to be using a tablet this time. This sort of work doesn't really lend itself all that well to tablet use because we're going to be doing a lot of sort of precise clicking. If you're really good at precise clicking with a tablet, then hey, go for it. I used this style of deck plan for my previous stuff, and I really liked the way the artist that originally did it used line thickness to distinguish between sort of interior partitions, exterior hull, and maybe more delicate portions of the ship. Now this, I don't know what this is in Voyager. I'd have to look and see. I don't actually think it's windows. I think it's like a sloping section of the hull. But they've used a smaller size here, and actually I kind of like that. So kind of the first thing to get done is to create some outlines around our ship here. And actually I'm going to quickly pop over to my timer just so I have an idea of what's going on. Okay, so what we're going to do is outline this thing with just a big outline, and we're going to start it we're going to reflect things around a center line here. So actually we could do view rulers and just drag, what do I got? Snapping something going on there, which I don't really like. Let me unlock this, and we're just going to edge that up just a little bit. It doesn't matter. We don't have to be all that precise, but you know, sometimes you do. All right, so I'm going to take the lasso tool, the polygonal lasso tool over here, and if you click over here on this, normally it'll be like the regular lasso tool. We'll take the polygonal lasso tool. If you really want to, you can take the freehand lasso tool, but I'm not that good at that. So I'm going to do it this way, and I'm actually going to zoom in so I get a little more precision. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a little bit down here in the area that we're not working in, just so we have a bit of a tail. And I'm going to bring it up, and I'm just going to try to stick along the center line of this thing. And where it's vertical, you know, you could hold like shift to keep yourself perfectly vertical, or you can just kind of freehand it. And that's kind of what I'm going to do. Now, one thing that's really annoying about this lasso tool is sometimes it auto-completes, and I do not know under what conditions it makes that decision. It seems very random to me at times. And again, we don't have to be all that precise. It depends really on your application. Sci-fi people tend to be, you know, bolt counters. So, you know, if you've got whatever the heck this thing is here, and you don't do it right, you know, you might get called out on it. So it really does depend on your audience. Who's your forum for this? So if you're making it for personal use, don't sweat it. I mean, what the heck is that? We don't know what that is, but, you know, somebody does. I guarantee you that somebody knows that's the duotronic, you know, collation device or something like that. I don't fracking know what it is. I don't really care what it is. But I'm going to make it look more or less like this artist chose to make it look. Why is that? Okay, I'm hitting the wrong key there. Trying to make this, yeah, there goes our autocomplete, but fortunately we had completed half of the layout, so it actually is okay. If it does autocomplete on you, it's not a problem. What we're doing here, we're not working with a line, right? We're working with an area selected, but what we're going to do is we're going to make this become a line by doing some Photoshop magic here. Let's pick a color. It honestly doesn't matter what color you pick. And we're going to go to Edit and Stroke. And Stroke is going to give us a line all the way around here. Now, if you chose to do the center, then we're going to pick the center location, but you could have also picked the inside or outside. Now, that will make a difference in how your line looks. So keep that in mind and play with it and see what you get. Now, if we did this 2-stroke width here, 2-pixel stroke width, it will look a little different. Let's try 15 initially. I want to try to match this line pretty closely. It doesn't quite get there, so we're going to undo that and go over here to stroke. And let's try 18 maybe. A little small still. I was thinking about 20, but thought that might be too much. But let's try it. I think 20 makes me pretty happy, actually. So let's go ahead and OK that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this down to the other side. But we may not duplicate it just yet. Let's see if we have any other things we want to do before we duplicate. We've got a pretty asymmetric layout here. So duplication is not necessarily going to benefit us too much with a lot of this internal component here. It looks like this might be pretty duplicatable, but once we get to the ready room and the briefing room, we kind of lose that a little bit. So let's think about that for a minute. But this is going to be the hull outline. I'm not going to name it yet because we're going to be merging it with some other things. But let's, so we want to do this portion here, this flare out in front of the view screen, whatever's going on in here. we don't have to know, but we're going to do this portion now. And so we will want a new layer, and let's make sure we go ahead and do that so we don't end up putting anything on the layer we already worked in. And we're going to, I'm going to just drop an anchor point right there so I can get myself more in the middle and kind of work a way around. And again, because these are curved, we want to kind of be a little bit. I'm going to put in a lot of control points, but not too many. Honestly, the more control points you put in, the more chance you have of kind of being not really in a line. Fewer points is actually sometimes better in a case like this. So I'm going to take it back all the way around over here and do this with it, and then we're going to stroke again. Now this time I think I will use something like 15 and see where that puts us. Pretty close, really. Maybe just a little bit more. Again, you don't have to be this precise, but I'm just trying to stick with it for the outlines at least. I think I'm going to live with 16. Okay, so if we turn off our background layer, here's what we've got. It doesn't look like much, right? But what we're interested in here is basically this portion of the outline, right? Just along here. And what we'd like to do is mirror this over to the other side. So let's do a couple things that will let us do that. If we're right now on this layer, the layer with the leftmost piece, if I just drag a marquee selection box around that, I can delete that out. And we don't need this middle part here. And then we don't need anything up to that middle, up to that snap line that I originally drew. Now if we go to the second layer over here, we're going to want to do a little bit of custom work over here, but we can grab a large section of this and delete it out. So we can go up to there, and now let's focus on this middle bit here. You know, hey, if anybody that really knows Photoshop knows, is there a way that I can add more items to this list here? I'm constantly using like 400 and 600, and I have to type them in, but I really wouldn't mind having them actually added to that menu, that drop-down menu. That would be nice. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tool here, the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm just going to grab out a section that kind of matches this line here. And we're going to go, this is actually affecting this layer, so I'm going to delete that. And now we've got a bit of an edge there that's merged together, which is pretty cool. Now you can use this technique for just about any kind of internal space. So if you're doing a, let's say a modern, schematic type diagram map of a building, you can easily use this, or a dungeon, or whatever it will be. You can easily use this to create your walls and other features and then apply textures to them in the same way we were applying textures to the various layers of the map. In this case, we're going to simply color these, but we could, if we wanted to, apply textures to them, bevels, shadows, all kinds of things to make this look more realistic if we wanted to. All right, let me delete or close these down, I guess. Now, let's turn our reference back on and get a quick look at it. So this bit here could be done as well, and we might as well do it. It's another one of the ones we're going to reflect across. But let's look at, first of all, how we're going to reflect these across. So go ahead and take these, and I'm going to merge them together. I always get nervous about merging layers, but you got to do it sometime, right? So we're going to do that with it. I'm going to do Control T for transform and right click, and I'm going to just go flip vertical. And there you go. I hit enter to confirm that transformation, and I'm switching back to V to the select tool here. And I am just going to shift and down arrow and push this guy roughly into alignment with the other one. Now exactness, again, doesn't matter. So now we've got our main outer hull for this whole deck sort of established. So what's next? Well, we can start on some interior walls, and why don't we? Let's go ahead and merge these two. And we have another thing back here that we're going to have to deal with. What is this thing back here? Let's turn this off and turn this on. What even is that? Is that a window? Yeah, man, I don't know what that is. You know, we might figure out. Well, we're going to have to take a swag and figure out what that is. I would have thought that this is the... Okay, so this is the turbo lift. Yeah, let's identify some things here. We've got the captain's ready room, we've got the bridge, and various control stations on the bridge, no problem. We've got the briefing room over here. I did not realize there was a back door over here. I guess they needed somewhere to put the bathrooms. So we've got the head right here. Back here we have something, and over here we have something. So these are some kind of, you know, equipment bay of some sort. And then the captain here has her own, like, restroom suite. We never see bathrooms in Star Trek, so you guys gotta wonder where they are. And then we have a couple of escape pods over here. And then, what's this? Oh, this is an airlock. I see. If I'd looked at the title, it would have told me. So we got an airlock here. I'm guessing these are probably like suit lockers or something. This is probably airlock proper. And this is an exterior hatch. So we'll have to handle that exterior hatch at some point. But for now, I think we can safely ignore it. So let's just turn off that layer there. And let's focus on maybe making some of these lines happen in here. What is the best way to do that? Well, they're kind of complex. So you want to really just sort of find a starting point and go from there. And I'm thinking the starting point is going to be kind of breaking this down into some easier to look at lines. This line here, for instance, is really just a vertical line running across the breadth of the ship. Same thing here. We have a line that runs like this, right? So we can foresee putting another vertical line just all the way across, and another one right here. We've got a horizontal line that runs right here. We've got a smaller one that runs right here and here. It's actually bigger in this section. And then we've got some diagonal lines that are kind of repeated. So what we can do is we can make these lines on various layers and then intersect them, kind of like we did these two. And I think that's what we're going to start with here. So let's make a new layer. And we can use something simple for the horizontal lines and vertical lines. We can use something simple like this marquee tool over here. And that's going to be, you know, 14, 15, something like that. We could just edit, stroke. Let's try 14 maybe to keep it differentiated from the first part up there. It's possibly a little big, but maybe not too bad. Okay, so let's deselect with Control D, and I'm going to use the marquee tool, which shortcut is M for that, by the way. And we can cut that back into the edge of the hull over here, just so that it's going to sit under our other hull line. And we could have done this and reflected it over too. There's no reason we couldn't have done that. But because we're dealing with asymmetry on the rest of the ship, we can do it this way. I think that's fine. So I'm going to throw in a layer here. We're going to call it hull. Throw that in there just so we don't mess with it. And I'm going to call this like maybe inner partitions. And throw that there. Okay, so now we're going to be making layers inside that inner partitions. And this is going to take a while. So there ain't no way to rush it, unfortunately. Now we've got here two different wall thicknesses. We could try to mirror that, or we could ignore it. And I'm going to suggest that we do it because it gives us a little bit of visual distinctiveness. And actually, before we get to that, I've just realized that we've got another wall right here, another little horizontal wall. So why don't we go ahead and copy our horizontal wall and put it in all the places where we need horizontal walls. There's one right here. So let's grab that and drag it over. I just used Alt, held down the Alt key and dragged the layer to copy it. And now it's back here. So we can cut it I'm going to cut it near, but not up to this wall. We'll wait until we have that wall in place so that we can make sure that we match up. We just have to be aware that we need to go through and do a little bit of trimming. So I'm going to go back to this original layer again, and I'm going to grab it. I'm going to just Alt drag it to copy, and then we've got our tool to drag it around, and we could put it here, but I'm thinking I want to put it over here by the bridge. And so one nice thing about a line like this is that we can transform it without making the pixels janky on the sides. So if we just expand this vertically, we might be distorting the very end pixels, but we're not going to be distorting any of the side pixels, which are the only ones we care about, as long as we get that out past the end like that. So there we go, and we can delete out the middle of this, get that out of our way, this out of our way, and get that out of our way. Now we got the line there. And another thing we could do here, just if we want to make this just a little bit more visible, is we can go in, hang on, we can go into the to the layer style and throw a color overlay on it. If we just want to make it maybe not so much that it floats into the background, but you can do it full red or whatever if you want to, or you can make it a different color. We just take that and copy that layer style and paste it across everything. Now we can see all of our layers that we're working with here. Probably hard to see, especially on YouTube. In fact, would a brighter color be useful for you guys? I'm wondering. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. You guys let me know next video, in time for next video, and I will change things accordingly. So what other vertical walls do we have? Well, we do have another one over here. What is this? Is this anything? Yeah, this isn't anything. This is a layer I made in anticipation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this one, which is this wall right here, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to drag it over to here. Oh, yep. Actually, that kind of comes down all the way to here. Can't. Why won't you? There we go. So that came all the way up to there, and then we've got this one here, which actually seems a little smaller, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. We'll use this size. Ooh. We do have to maintain the size of this guy here. We want this circle of the turbo lift to be, you know, kind of in a proper circle over here. So actually I'm going to hold this one, I'm going to delete that, and we're just going to hold this section in abeyance. We'll work on that a little bit later on. Let's get some horizontal ones going now, I guess. So we'll use layer 6 here, and we will make ourselves a horizontal wall. We could actually just copy a wall, and why don't we do that? Instead of creating that new layer there, I'm going to just copy that original long wall right here, and I'm going to transform it. I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and turn it 90 degrees. Now we have a wall that's the same width as that we can use for internal walls, and I'll do that right here. I guess I'm deciding to make this thick, so we might have to do some modifications. And then I'm just going to trim it a little bit. I think this is our longest wall. I'm going to trim it back a little bit, but not all the way. And then we've got some more. So let's just drag them around. Get them kind of in the right place. And I've just realized that we've got a vertical wall right there that we have to deal with too. Okay, so this is like a major bulkhead. Again, this wall looks a little skinnier, but we could probably go ahead and use this wall. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm still deciding. So let's move it back here, and then let's move it down here. We're going to grab a skinnier wall for this section. For whatever reason, it's skinnier. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to select this wall, and I'm going to alt drag it to copy, and I'm going to paste it across there. I'm going to grab a copy of it, paste it across there, and across there. Now, for these more complex designs, you may want to just do the whole thing. Like, you could start here and go all the way around here and then stroke that. It's a possibility. I find it a little easier to build them in pieces like this. So I think we've gotten, well, not quite. Haven't quite gotten all of our horizontal walls. Let's get that one there, and then let's go ahead and grab this one. Now I'm just right-clicking on these and choosing the most obvious choice. And obviously, since we're just doing layer 5, copy whatever, when you right-click and you see that, that's going to be the one you want. When you get into a messier situation, you'll have bigger issues. Okay, so we got that down there. I think we're going to make this, like I said, the same size. And actually, I'm not going to worry about the overlap. I think we can fix that later. So I'm just going to leave it like that. All right, and then that gets us down to the sort of more complicated walls. Oh, well, except for this, right? We do have along the top the escape pods to deal with. Top and bottom of the escape pods. Is there anything else? I don't really think there is anything else. Okay, up to the top, what I'm going to try to do is get a section of this put together so that we can actually go through and sort of try to finish it up. So I'm creating a new layer, and I'm going to draw a marquee box. Actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to draw a marquee box right here, just through the middle of this top and bottom line thing here. And I'm going to edit stroke with, let's see, so we did 14 for the interior walls. Let's do 12, maybe even smaller. Let's do 10. That's probably good enough. I'm going to delete that. Actually, you know what? No, it's not quite small enough for me. I'm going to go back. This is the action history, by the way. So we can go through here and select what we don't want and remove it from our history. I'm going to remove back to the stroke and redo the stroke. Apologies if you guys know these basics of Photoshop, but I don't know what people know and don't know. So I'm going to err on the side of telling people what's going on. So now I'm going to just copy this little guy here. And, well, not really copy. I'm going to grab it and put it over there. I just used the V key to drag that bit. It's still on the same layer. I'm going to cut these about to the middle of this vertical wall. I'm just going to highlight and select delete, because our wall is being handled over here by these guys. This is just this little bit here in the middle. And now we need these, oops, yep, see, so those are still in the same layer. If we grab that and press V, we can just sort of cut it out and move it around. And what I'm going to do is, before I do that, I think I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. It's going to save us a little bit of hassle, although not much. And I'm going to move this into place right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift, and I'm going to hit the left arrow. Now that created a copy of this on the same layer. It hasn't yet stuck it back down, right? So I'm going to let go of the Alt key, because if I kept Alt down, it would just copy it again. I don't want that. So I'm going to just keep holding down Shift and hitting the arrow until I get it about in the right place, and then I'm going to let go of Shift and just keep moving it with the arrow. Just going to nudge it into place over there. And then I'm going to deselect. So now we've got this shape over here, and actually, rather than try to manually duplicate that over here, I'm just going to delete what we have over here. I'm going to Alt drag this layer, so now we have 2 of these layers right here, and then I'm going to Control T to transform and flip vertical, and then we can just sort of drag that into place. And I think that was a little easier than trying to match this shape. We'll worry about these details here later on. I'm just trying to get the bulkheads in. All right, so now we have kind of a basic layout for this area back here. So let's go in and clean it up a little bit. What do I mean by cleaning up? I mean removing the places where our overages stick out into space that we don't want them in, and maybe even making holes for the doors and stuff. So let's think about that a little bit. And because we have this on a layer up here, we can quickly turn it off and take a look at our reference document. So for instance, we could do something like this, where we select out the door area, turn back on our reference thing, select this bit, and hit delete to delete our door. So that's a cool way of working with, kind of being able to transform based off of a reference. So why don't we try that again? Let's just do it over here and grab this door and turn our sketch back on. Oops, okay, I don't want to move it. I just want to select it. Select that, and that didn't work. Okay, what did I do wrong? I probably selected the wrong thing. There we go. I did. I think I selected this thing here by mistake. All right, see, so we kind of took care of that. Now, over here, whoops, no, don't want to do that. Do we zoom in a bit more? Yeah, I think maybe we zoom in to, say, 400 right here. Let's clean up this edge right here. If we turn off our sketch, we'll see that we have just this T junctions right here. So we don't want this overhang. Fortunately, we can select that quickly and use the marquee tool. And if we just eyeball that, honestly, at like 400% zoom, you're not going to make a mistake. That's close enough. And then we can do it down here too. So select this one, marquee tool, drag your selection box around it, and let it go. Now, zoom back to 200, and you can see that that's pretty clean. Now, it looks like we're also pretty clean up here somehow. Kind of wouldn't have thought so. Let's turn off our sketch briefly and take a look. Okay, we do have a door up here. So why don't we go ahead and select that and remove that out. Okay. Turn the sketch back on, V to select, and we're going to just delete that. Right, so that's the game plan, is basically go around and remove all of these edges. And I don't know if there are any more special cases to show you. I don't think there are, but let's take a quick look. No, not really. There aren't any special cases to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the video, and then I'm going to go through and clean these up a little bit, and then we'll come back and look at it later, and I'll show you kind of what we're going to do with it. All right, so hang on just a bit, seconds for you and minutes for me. Okay, we're back. I did a little more cleanup, not a whole lot, but a little bit. We've got the basic shapes going on. And let's take a look at one special case over here. If we turn this off, you can see we've got a curve around here. Okay, well, all right, let's see if we can figure out which two pieces these are. So we have got, I'll just move them all the way to the top. We've got layer 5 copy 12 right there, and we've got layer 5 copy 13 right there. So these are our two pieces that make up this. And we want to make a curve right here. So how are we going to do that? Well, I think that what we can do is a little bit of a compound selection. So if we take the marquee tool and choose instead the elliptical marquee tool, and we just start at the corner here actually, and hold down shift and drag it out, we're going to get the ability to make a curve. So there you go, there's a curve. We've got that selected. Now how do we get this to do anything that we need it to do? Well, I think we need to make a compound selection. If we tried to, okay, first of all, if you deleted this, what's under here, you're just going to delete a hole out of the thing, which we don't want. If you selected inverse, you think, okay, well, it'll delete that little corner, and it would also delete over here. So instead of doing that, what we want to do is hold down the Shift key, select the rectangular marquee tool, and a little hard to see here. You might have to poke your head up close to the screen if your eyesight's as bad as mine. But we're just going to try to select this area here, and we need to make sure that we select it for the entire segment of that line. Alright, so there we go. We've got that selection now, and I'm going to do was it Control-Shift-I for select inverse? I think it is, but let me just make sure. Yeah, Control-Shift-I. I don't know why I was having an issue with that. Alright, and I'm going to select one of these layers, and I'm going to press delete. I'm going to select the other layer, and I'm going to press delete. And there's our curve. So now we have like that looking pretty good. It's not quite as deep as the one in the image. We could probably work with that a little bit better, but we'll leave it for now. Now, what's this thing here? It's not a door. I'm guessing it's a hatch. This is probably whatever Jeffrey's tube thing. So this is probably a hatch in the wall. We'll handle that differently than doors like these guys. If we look over at my well, actually, I guess I don't still have it open. Let me open it. If we look over at my original, this guy here, here's how I kind of handled doors. Unfortunately, this is not the highest res version of it available. I've got all the inner bulkheads and even the outer deck done in this sort of light purple color. Structural supports that are just kind of decorational are in it like a darker purple. These doorways here are in a very dark purple. And then I've done things like actual hatches. I guess I've done them in kind of they kind of look like traditional, you know, D&D map doors kind of thing. There's like a box. And then do I have well, I have an energy field kind of thing here, and I think I have some of these on the detention level as well. Are there any other sorts of things? Yeah, not really. So we'll just have to figure out how we want to do the openings. I kind of like this as a hatch. It really makes it clear. Although the way it's done in the source material is pretty cool too. This sort of inside the wall bit. So we might decide about that later. But we do have still the hull to deal with. Now why can't I see the hull? Because it's off right over here. All right. Let's do one more thing real quick. We're going to fix up this area back here, and then we're going to temporarily merge everything together and see what we're dealing with. Okay, so what we're going to do is turn that off a little bit, and I'm going to zoom in. We need to make a hole through the middle of it. So let's just grab the marquee tool and drag it down. I'm not going to get into all this little edge detail kind of stuff that's going on over there. For one thing, it's kind of difficult to tell what's going on, and for another thing, I think we can deal. We're not going to see it. So I'm going to select our hull layer. I'm going to delete that out. All right. So that's the first step. Second step is we've got a little bit of a step in over here. So why don't we go ahead and do that too? And we can do it with the lasso tool, I believe. So if let's see, why don't I start, first of all, delete that. I'm going to start down here. I'm going to start the thing. I'm going to hold down Shift and bring it up to here. And I'm going to click again, and still holding Shift down, I'm just going to use the internal 45-degree angle thingy. And I'm going to bring that over like that. And we're going to go back, turn on our hull thing, and oh, okay, that doesn't really stick out quite as far as the original hull. Well, I'll tell you what, we can do, while we still have the selection tool selected, don't switch to V or you'll move the actual pixels. We're just moving the selection here. And then I'm going to hit delete there. Now, am I right that I can do transform? No, I can't do transform. Well, it's okay. We can do the same thing right down here. So getting it lined up is going to be the bear, though. I'm going to click there. Click there. Oh, yeah, 45 degrees. Do that. And then I'm just going to move it a little bit. I actually did the wrong thing there. I switched over to the V tool, which caused my pixels to move. Actually, no. What did I do? Well, you know what? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I think we've accomplished it in any case. Yeah, we have. But why does this look so janky? I've got a little bump back here that I don't really like. Let's probably something to do with the way I did that. Yeah, let's take that off. That's fine. This looks a little rough along the edges here. I did not use anti-aliasing. In general, you don't want to use anti-aliasing when you're trying to create, you know, like these wall template type things. Okay. So here's our stuff here. We're going to have to get rid of this one thing. I know I'm going a little long here, but I want to just try to clean this up real quick. I'm going to delete that back under, so it's under the hull. And we're good all the way back here. So from like here back, we're looking pretty good. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to save this. And give me just a second. Okay, I've got that saved now. And what we're going to do is we're going to just take this whole sketch layer and we're going to merge it. Now you notice I've got all kinds of different colors in here. This stuff is not right, but from here back it is pretty right. So let's do just a simple layer style on top of here with a color overlay, and let's make that color overlay something like that sort of pinkish color that we were looking at before. I think it had some blue in it. Maybe something like that. Let's do OK on that, and then let's add a layer right here. We're going to fill it with black. I'm just pressing G to get the fill tool. Drop that in, and there's our hull. We're pretty well done. Now you can notice that I've made some errors here, and this is why we don't want to merge it anytime soon, is because we need to go through and clean out all these errors. This error here could be fixed pretty easily though. You can see that it just sticks out a little bit. A little hard to see when you're over the reference materials what's going on, but if we just highlight that, select the sketch layer and delete, we can get rid of that little bump. So you can clean up a lot of these little bumps. If you really want to later on, you could blur it just a small bit. Is there like a blur edges? No, I don't really think there is. We just pick Gaussian blur and maybe not 28 pixels. Like we just pick 0.2 or 0.5. Now this doesn't look very good up close, but if we zoom out, does it look better? I don't know. It takes a little bit of work to make that happen. I think that in general though, you're not going to notice all of this when we have all of the other stuff going on. It'll be a little pixelated, but not too bad. The other thing to bear in mind is when you set your initial image size, if we had done more like a 4,000 by 4,000 image or even bigger, right, it would take a lot more memory, but we end up with a much higher fidelity on this kind of thing, and that may be worth doing depending on what you're doing. If you're just making a toss-off kind of image, no big deal. If you want to make a poster map, you're going to want to set the size really big to work with that. So anyway, I think that is it for this tutorial, but we'll be back very soon, hopefully, and follow up on it. Finish up these walls. I may do some of that off camera just to kind of quickie get through it, and then we'll work on how do we color it in a little bit. Then we'll work on the interface type of thing, just so we can look at how do you frame your map, how do you show it off. And I think that is it for this tutorial. It's going to be maybe 4 to 5 episodes long. If you guys want to do a Firefly class or something like that at some point in the future, then we may do a separate one for that. But for now, we'll just focus on getting this one done. And back to the general series, I believe that there's probably another town map or two coming at some point, because I think there's some work that we still needed to kind of do on that, and then maybe we can move on to something else on the fantasy side. I would like to get into like the inside of a dungeon or a castle or something maybe. And just in general, just to let you guys know, obviously there hasn't been a video in quite a while, like 4 months or so. Not going to make a long string of excuses, but I'm settling into a new job. I've been super busy and trying to. I just had to pare down, you know, a little bit of winter hibernation going on, lack of light, making me not good. So, you know, I just kind of pared down, focused on just keeping my gaming channel afloat. I'm back here. I can't make any guarantees about how much of this content's going to get done. It takes a lot of kind of brain power and time and energy to put one of these videos together. But I'm going to do my best to make them start appearing regularly. So if you guys are fans of the series, please do, you know, leave me a like, leave me a comment, encourage me to continue here. The views are great, but you know, comments and things will get this stuff lifted up in the YouTube view rankings so that other people can find it and make it more exciting for me to do. I love doing this anyway. I love that you guys are watching it and enjoying it, and I hope you keep doing that. And we'll keep going. All right, so thanks very much for joining me for episode 9 of Let's Make Maps, and hopefully we'll be back real soon with this. I think we will. All right, see you soon. Bye.